Oh, man. Oh, hi. I'm Mr. David. I'm playing with my steady hand game. During our Makerspace today, you'll have a chance to make one for yourself. So let's turn the lights on and get started. So this is what the game looks like. And I'm going to set mine to the side and get out my take-home kit, the grab-and-go kit that I got from the library. And I would suggest that you get yours so we can get started. First thing to do is to find the take-home paper, which is our instructions. Looks like this. And go ahead and put your name and the date on the page. We said this is the Steady Hand Game Workshop. We've got two important safety things to talk about. We're going to be using a hot glue gun today. And the hot glue can squeeze out. The other safety fact is that some glue gun parts are too hot to touch. This is what my hot glue gun looks like. And the part down here on the end that is silver is the part that would be very hot. So you definitely want to avoid touching that. And then when you apply the glue, it will be hot for some short amount of time when it squeezes out. So you want to not touch that while it's still hot. I'll mention that again when we actually use the glue gun, but I wanted to make sure we talked about safety at the beginning. There are two technology items we're going to use today. One is a light-emitting diode. The light-emitting diode is an electronic device that converts electricity to light. The one that we're using is a very special one because it has a microprocessor included in the epoxy dome, and it has 3 LED terminals inside. That allows it to flash different colors, as you saw when I was playing the game when you came in at the beginning. So this is a different kind from most LEDs. You are familiar probably with a red LED on an electronic device that might indicate that power is on. But this one's a very special LED. The other technology we're going to use is heat shrink tubing, and that's also on the front of your take-home paper. Heat shrink tubing is made of a special material that will become smaller in diameter when it's exposed to heat. Most of the heat shrink tubing that we use in electronics projects requires a heat gun to cause it to shrink. The material that's in your take-home package is a very special kind that is more sensitive than most to temperature, and you'll be able to cause it to shrink using a hairdryer. So that's something else that we're going to need will be a hairdryer. So with that background information, it's time to open your package and find your parts list, and we will go through the bag and identify the parts that were in our grab-and-go kit. The first item it says is a wood base. So your wood base should look like this, already having a label on the front and already has some holes drilled in the back of it. We'll use those in very important ways. Next thing to look for is a clothespin. This is just a standard clothespin. Then a long bare wire that is not insulated. This is what mine looks like. This is a copper wire. It's easy to bend, so we can change its shape a lot. The next thing on our take-home list is a wand assembly. Now, since we're doing this using a grab-and-go kit, I've already done some of the assembly for you. In this case, it already has a copper wire with a loop in the shape of a quarter. It already has the LED we talked about. And it's already got some heat shrink. Right here's some red heat shrink, and here's some yellow heat shrink, but it's not yet shrunk. It's still its large size. So later on, we'll talk about actually using that. Also, right now, while we're talking about it, if you look very, very close at your LED, you might be able to see the tiny chip that is the microprocessor. Or you might want to get a magnifying glass to look at it. But it's a very tiny chip, and you'll see later that that allows us to get those different colors. The next two things on our list are the heat shrink tubing, which I just mentioned. The red might already be on the white wire, and the two yellow might already be on the LED and the copper loop. And the last item is your batteries. Oops, got a battery holder also. There's our battery holder and the batteries. The next item on our list are our tools and supplies that we need. We've talked about the hot melt glue gun, we've talked about a hair dryer, and you might need a pair of pliers to pull the wire and make it go where you want it to go. Okay, so if you've got all of your parts, we're ready to start following the instructions. So it says to turn over the wood base, look at the two recessed holes. There's one on each end. And the two smaller holes in each recessed hole. You'll notice that one of those holes passes all the way through from the top. So we're going to insert one end of our long wire from the top through the start hole. So you can see the word start right there. Going to push that in and make it go through. And now it's gone through. It says push the wire through so about 1 inch is below the wood base. So that's about 1 inch. Bend this long wire so the free end will go into the small hole on the opposite side of the recessed hole. You may need pliers. I know I need pliers. My fingers won't do this without the help of the pliers. So I'm going to bend it over and make it go down so I can make it go inside that opening. And then I'm going to pull it so that it goes inside. And push the wire down. So if you look on your instructions, you'll see on the top of the second column it says this picture shows the wire down ready for hot glue to fill in. Make sure the copper wire is below the surface of the wood. Pull the wire from the top of the board so it will fit in. So I'm pulling it from here down and making it fit in, and yes. The next step says fill the large recessed hole with hot melt glue so the wire will stay put. So I'm going to put the tip of the glue gun down in the bottom and squeeze that so I've got hot glue in the bottom of this recessed hole. And when I get that filled in, I have now finished that end of my board. So I'm going to be still and quiet long enough for that glue to set, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. Okay, now I'm going to do the same steps on the other end. So I'm going to push the wire through, make it above by about 1 inch, and then I'm going to bend it so that I can make it go into the hole on the other end and push it down. Okay, and it's in deep enough, so I'm going to add the hot melt glue back here as well. And I'm out of glue. But I've got enough glue in there, so I'm going to let that become solid and cool. And then I'll be on to step number 2. Now I like to use a check mark to let me know which steps I've finished. So I'm going to check mark all the steps that I have finished already. And I'll know that my next step is going to be to attach the battery holder to the wood base. If you look on the back of your take-home paper, you can see the example that shows what the finished project looks like, and you can use that information to decide where to position the battery holder. So I want the battery holder to be close to the finish line, and I'm going to put some hot glue on there because my instructions said to use hot melt glue to attach the battery holder to the wood base. And be careful of squeeze out. Remember we said that the glue will be hot when it is used, and you do not want to touch it while it's hot. You want to allow it to cool before you touch it. So the next step says to use the hot melt glue to attach the clothespin to the wood base. So if you look at the picture on the back, you can see that the clothespin is used to hold the wand in place. So I'm going to position my clothespin where I can keep the wand in place, and I'll apply hot glue to the clothespin. I'm going to hold it down long enough for the glue to cool and become solid. Okay, we've completed that step, so our next step says to slide the yellow heat shrink tubing into place over the two legs of the LED. Use a hairdryer to cause the tubing to shrink. So on the wand, you'll see that we've already got the heat shrink tubing covering those connections. One's on the white wire, and one goes over the other connections for the wand. So I will put that in place and then use my hairdryer. So when I look at it now, I can see that my heat shrink tubing has gotten smaller in diameter. So that's what I wanted to achieve. So my next step says to pull the white wire through the ink pen body so the LEDs are inside the ink pen body. So I'm going to pull my white wire down and get everything inside the ink pen body. There we go. Our next step says to slide the red heat shrink tubing over the red battery wire. So I've got a red piece of heat shrink tubing, and I'm going to put that over the battery holder wire. There's my battery holder. I'll slide that over top of the red battery wire. Then to connect the wand. So we're going to connect the other end of the white wire to the red wire from the battery holder by making a pigtail connection. So connect the other end of the white wire to the red wire from the battery holder using a pigtail twist. So I'm going to hold it right here where you might be able to see it. And I've got those two side by side, and now I just twist them together. Fold this back over the red wire. So now I'm going to fold it back over the red wire. So now it looks a little bit like the picture in your take-home paper. Slide the red heat shrink over the twist. Use the hairdryer to shrink the tubing. Okay, our next step is number 8. It says that the black wire from the battery pack has an alligator clip. Attach it to the long bare wire near the finished label. So I've got an alligator clip and I've got a finished label, so I'm going to connect that right there. Step number 9 says insert the batteries into the battery holder. The battery holder has springs on one end, and that is the place where you want to put the flat end of the battery. And the button end of the battery goes on the other end, of course. Our next step is number 9. the rest of number 9 says test the circuit by holding the small loop to the long bare wire. And I don't see it working, so I'm going to read my troubleshooting. Is the black wire from the battery holder attached to the long bare wire? Yes. Are the button end of the batteries touching the battery holder? Squeeze. Well, let me try fixing that. That was my problem. The battery was not touching on the end. So now, when the battery is touching and I touch, I get a colorful light. So that means I now have a completed game. I am ready to play by starting it on that end and then see how fast I can move. Oops, I touched. Oops, I touched. How fast I can get it to the other end. Now, one of the things I think is fun about this game is, you see how smooth and straight my wire is? Before I let somebody else play it, I might decide that I want to make it a little more interesting. And of course, you can do that as many times as you want because the copper is very pliable, it's easily bent, and you can change its shape to be any shape that you would want to use. I hope you've enjoyed making our project today, and be sure to keep an eye out for future Makerspace. Thank you.